A state-of-the-art Boeing 737 falls like a rock from the sky less than a mile away from the runway's threshold. Was it human error or engine failure?
Hi guys, welcome to Blue Wings Aviation English channel. For those who don't know me, my name is Michael Costa. I'm a former U.S. Navy cadet, an airplane pilot, and English instructor. In this channel, I'm going to teach you the hardest words and technical terms in aviation so you can understand better the air crash investigation videos online. This video was sponsored by ReserveInc.com, where you can get one of these cool t-shirts for a fair price. I'll leave a link on the description below.
Localizer alive means that the ILS is operating and working properly. Localizer captured. The localizer has been intercepted and the aircraft is tracking the signal. Short landing. Aircraft touches down on a shorter runway than usual or that there are obstacles near the approach path. Lack of fire means that on this accident there were no fire or fuel burning. Radio altimeter is an electronic instrument that measures the height of an aircraft above the terrain below. Glide slope, the proper path of descent for an aircraft preparing to land, which is indicated by a radio beam. Slam dunk approach is a steep, rapid descent to an airport runway, often at a higher altitude than the standard approach. Glide path, an aircraft line of descent to land. Conversion of circumstances, the meeting of different events or situation that leads to a specific outcome. On February 25, 2009, Turkish Airline Flight 1951 was flying from Istanbul, Turkey to Amsterdam Schiphol Airport. It was a Boeing 737-800, one of the most popular aircrafts of the world. It is the best-seller commercial jet ever. There are more than 5,000 aircraft sold worldwide and more than 1,500,000 passengers transported daily. The 757 flew higher altitudes, longer routes, it had improved wings and avionics, simpler systems that required less management. The airplane had 128 passengers on board. 9 were killed, including all 3 pilots. It was a non-US registered aircraft, but it was an American-made aircraft. Both airframe and engines were designed in the United States. The Dutch Safety Board began investigating. In the beginning, they wondered if it fell from the skies after a microburst, like the accident with British Airways Flight 38, where a Boeing 777 had a short landing at Heathrow in London after flameout short of the runway after the engine stopped delivering power. The 757 was a 2 pilots aircraft, but this one had a third pilot. A safety pilot was aboard whenever there was a training during the flight. The safety pilot was in charge of making sure the training pilots wouldn't miss anything. They were flying at flight level 850 when they began preparation for landing at runway 18 right using the ILS, when suddenly the landing gear warning horn began. The radio altimeter data was showing a -8 feet, which was a faulty reading since they were still flying on a very high altitude. The 737 has 2 altimeters that show information on the flight display. There's the pitot tube that provides air pressure to determine plane's height above sea level, and the radio altimeter, which is very accurate and uses 4 antennas, 2 that transmit signals to the ground and 2 that reads the signal that bounces back to determine the plane's height. They were in an unusual approach. They were off the glide slope and had to do a slam dunk approach to maintain the correct glide path. That happened because they were doing a late checklist during the landing, and as pilots set up the aircraft for landing mode, the auto throttle set the engine to idle, then to retard mode, which should happen in the flare position when pilots slowly pull the nose of the plane upwards before touchdown. None of the three pilots noticed how the airspeed dropped dangerously. Investigators began to study documents from the airline and realized that the radio altimeter installed on that aircraft wasn't the original one. The autopilot controls altitude and direction, while the autothrust determines how much power the engines will provide. It receives commands directly from the radio altimeters, which was not an original Boeing radio altimeter since the company was having issues with the radio altimeter. They tried to fix it by cleaning, replacing the antenna, replacing gaskets to prevent from water damage, but they were never able to fix them. All 737's fleet of Turkish Airlines had more than 235 reports of trouble with the radio altimeters. There were 16 reports that aircraft alone. The same problem happened in various countries. Most pilots were able to disengage auto throttle since they were receiving negative readings from the radio altimeters. This accident wasn't caused by the faulty reading from the radio altimeters only. It was a convergence of circumstances. Boeing had received numerous complaints about the faulty radio altimeter, but they said that it had no impact on safety. The Dutch Safety Board didn't agree, because the pilots understand what the plane was telling them. They came to the conclusion that there was a deficit of training and ability of human beings to recover from mistakes made when interfacing with automation. Other example of that kind of accident was in 1995, an American airline Boeing 757 was flying in Cali, Colombia, and due to a last-minute change to the flight management system, which made the aircraft head towards a mountain, killing all 159 people on board. Another tragic example was the Boeing 737 from Aero, Peru, that in 1996 couldn't decipher contradicted altitudes and airspeed reading and fell in the Pacific Ocean with 61 passengers and 9 crew members on board. After this accident, NASA has been developing a IIFD, which stands for Integrated Intelligent Flight Deck. It helps pilots on the cockpit. The best technologies are not there to replace pilots, but to work with them. The final report concluded that the cause of the accident was a failure of technology, since the radio altimeters sent wrong information to the autothrust, causing it to set the improper mode. The crew were also blamed for not monitoring airspeed and altitude, even though there were 3 pilots on board. They could have looked out the window if they wanted to, but they were too busy figuring out what was happening to the aircraft and forgot to fly the airplane. Basic rule number 1 in aviation is that in an emergency, first always fly the airplane. They were worried about the alarm and forgot to fly the aircraft. Boeing and Airbus have different approaches when it comes to automation. Boeing gives pilots information and let them decide what to do, while Airbus have a flight computer that has decision-making power to prevent a crash. Now it's time for the quick and fun quiz. Which instrument sent wrong data to the autothrust system and the faulty reading to the pilots? Was it the pitot tube, the ILS system, the glide slope, the radio altimeter, or the localizer? Congratulations, if your answer was letter D, you got the question right. The radio altimeter was the faulty instrument.
This video was brought to you by ebookies.com, where you can buy your online book cheap and easy. The link is on the description below. If you're already a pilot, I recommend you get the Aviation English book. If you're a beginner student, get the Basic English book. The link is on the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and click on the bell to get the latest notification. I will leave my personal contact, my Facebook and Instagram. If you want to get in touch, it's on the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.